There is a town of 594 people in the Missouri Ozarks that is, mathematically, the center of America, not the center of the lower 48 by area. That is in Kansas. This is the center of the American population, the exact point where if you put every single person in the United States on a giant flat map and the map were a scale, it would balance perfectly. That point sits about 15 miles outside the town of Hartville in Wright County, Missouri. The Census Bureau has tracked this balance point every 10 years since 1790, and for 5 decades in a row now, it has landed in Missouri. The heart of America, in the most literal mathematical sense, is in the Ozarks, and almost nobody in the country knows it. That is fact number 1. There are 29 more, and I promise you will get most of them wrong. We are going to start in Missouri and work our way across the entire country. By the end, the map of the United States in your head is going to look different than it did when this video started. Subscribe right now. Hit the button and the bell. Fact 2. Missouri borders 8 states, and that ties it for the most of any state in America. Tennessee also borders 8. No state borders more. From Missouri, you can reach Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska without passing through a third state. Missouri is the great crossroads of the country, which is exactly why it has always been a place where the North, the South, the East, and the West collide. Fact 3. Missouri has 2 cities named after it, sort of. There is no city called Missouri, but the state contains both Kansas City and a region that confuses every outsider. Kansas City, Missouri, is bigger than Kansas City, Kansas. The famous one, with its barbecue, the Chiefs, and the jazz history, is in Missouri, not Kansas. Most Americans assume Kansas City is in Kansas. The good part is in Missouri. Fact 4. Missouri is not in the South. It is not quite the Midwest either, in any way that feels right to the people who live there, but the Census Bureau officially classifies Missouri as a Midwestern state. Culturally, the Boot Heel is deep south, the Ozarks are adjacent to Appalachian culture, and Kansas City and St. Louis are Midwestern. Missouri does not fit the category it was assigned, which is something this channel has covered before. Fact 5. The Missouri River, not the Mississippi, is the longest river in the United States. At about 2,341 miles, the Missouri is longer than the Mississippi. Most people assume the Mississippi is the longest river in America because it is the most famous. It is not. The river that gave this state its name is the longest in the country, and the 2 rivers meet just north of St. Louis. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this story matters. Fact 6. Reno. Nevada is farther west than Los Angeles, California. This one breaks people's brains. Los Angeles is a coastal city. Reno is nearly 300 miles inland, and yet Reno sits roughly 86 miles farther west than Los Angeles because California's coastline curves dramatically eastward as it runs south. The map in your head where the entire West Coast is a straight vertical line is wrong. Fact 7. To get from Detroit, Michigan into Canada, you drive south. Detroit sits north of Windsor, Ontario. It is the one major place on the United States and Canada border outside of Alaska, where you cross into Canada by heading south rather than north. Everyone pictures Canada as the country above us. In Detroit, Canada is below you. Fact 8. The closest point in the continental United States to Africa is not Florida. It is Maine. West Quoddy Head in Lubec, Maine, the easternmost point of the lower 48, is closer to the coast of Africa than any point in Florida. Florida is farther south, which makes everyone assume it is closer to Africa. But the Atlantic Ocean narrows as you go north, and the African coast bulges west. So a lighthouse in Maine wins. Fact 9. There is a piece of the United States you can only reach by driving through Canada. Point Roberts. Washington is a 5-square-mile chunk of American territory hanging off the bottom of a Canadian peninsula south of Vancouver. About 1,200 Americans live there. To drive to the rest of Washington state, they cross into Canada, drive 25 miles through British Columbia, and cross back into the United States. Locals call it the largest gated community in America. Their kids cross an international border twice a day to go to high school. Fact 10. Alaska is simultaneously the westernmost and the easternmost state in the United States. The Aleutian Islands stretch so far west that they cross the 180th meridian, the line where east longitude becomes west longitude. Once you cross it, you are technically in the Eastern Hemisphere. So Alaska reaches farther west than Hawaii and farther east than Maine at the same time. One state holds both extremes. Fact 11. Alaska also has more coastline than all the other 49 states combined, about 6,640 miles of it. Everyone guesses Florida or California for the longest coastline. The real answer is not close. Alaska's coast is longer than every other state's added together. Fact 12. The tallest mountain in the world, measured from base to peak, is in the United States. Mount Everest is the highest point above sea level. But Mauna Kea in Hawaii, measured from its base on the ocean floor to its summit, is over 33,000 feet tall. That is taller than Everest. Most of it is underwater. By total height, the tallest mountain on Earth is in Hawaii. Fact 13. The highest point in Pennsylvania is lower than the lowest point in Colorado. Mount Davis, the highest spot in Pennsylvania, sits around 3,213 feet. The lowest point in the entire state of Colorado is about 3,317 feet. The bottom of Colorado is higher than the top of Pennsylvania. Fact 14. Florida is bigger than England. The state most associated with theme parks and retirement is larger in area than the country that founded the original 13 colonies. People picture England as a substantial country and Florida as just a state. Florida is bigger. Fact 15. There was once a United States state called Franklin. From 1784 to 1789, the area that is now eastern Tennessee operated as the state of Franklin, named for Benjamin Franklin. It was never officially admitted to the Union and eventually became part of Tennessee. For a few years, America had a 14th state that history mostly forgot. Fact 16. Only 3 U.S. cities share the exact name of their state. Not New York City in New York. That works. But the full list of cities named identically to their state is short, and they trip people up constantly. There is a Kansas City, but no city simply called Kansas as a state capital. There is a Missouri City in Texas, not in Missouri, and the pattern is far rarer than people assume. Fact 17. The geographic center of the lower 48 states is in Kansas, near the town of Lebanon, not Missouri. Missouri holds the population center. Kansas holds the land center, 2 different kinds of middle, 2 different states, and people constantly confuse the two. Fact 18. The deepest lake in the United States is Crater Lake in Oregon. At 1,943 feet, it sits inside a collapsed volcano, has no rivers flowing in or out, and is filled entirely by rain and snow, which is why it is one of the clearest bodies of water on Earth. Most people guess one of the Great Lakes. The deepest is a volcano in Oregon. Fact 19. Hawaii is the only U.S. state that was once an independent kingdom with its own monarchy. Hawaii had kings and queens, a royal palace that still stands in Honolulu, and a sovereign government until it was overthrown in 1893. It is the only U.S. state that ever had a king. Fact 20. Hawaii is also the southernmost state, and it is farther south than you think. The southernmost point of Hawaii is well below the southern tip of Florida. Calais, on the Big Island, is the southernmost point in the entire United States, sitting at a latitude south of Mexico City. Fact 21. The Mississippi River does not start anywhere near the south. It begins at Lake Itasca in northern Minnesota, just a few hundred miles from the Canadian border, as a stream you can walk across. The river most associated with the Deep South is born in the cold North Woods. Fact 22. 4 states meet at a single point, and it is the only place in America where that happens. The 4 corners where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico meet is the one spot in the United States where you can stand in 4 states at once. No other location in the country lets you do it. Fact 23. West Virginia is the northernmost southern state and one of the most mountainous states in the entire country. People picture it as a small Appalachian afterthought. In reality, West Virginia has the highest mean elevation of any state east of the Mississippi River. It is more mountainous, on average, than Colorado is at its lowest points. Fact 24. Michigan touches 4 of the 5 Great Lakes and has more freshwater coastline than any other state. Superior, Michigan, Huron, and Erie all border Michigan. The state has more shoreline than the entire Atlantic seaboard from Maine to Florida, and almost all of it is freshwater. Fact 25. The largest city in the United States by land area is not New York or Los Angeles. It is Sitka, Alaska, which covers more than 2,800 square miles, larger than the entire states of Rhode Island and Delaware combined. Sitka alone is bigger than some small states. The city limits encompass an enormous area of Alaskan wilderness. Fact 26. The lowest point in North America is in California, not far from one of its highest. Badwater Basin in Death Valley sits 282 feet below sea level. Less than 90 miles away stands Mount Whitney, the highest point in the lower 48 at over 14,000 feet. The highest and lowest points in the contiguous United States are practically neighbors. Fact 27th. Kentucky and Missouri share a border that is split in 2 by the Mississippi River, and a piece of Kentucky is stranded on the Missouri side. The Kentucky Bend is a chunk of Kentucky completely cut off from the rest of the state. Surrounded by Missouri and Tennessee, reachable by land only by driving through Tennessee. An accident of the river and a surveying decision left a piece of Kentucky marooned across the river. Fact 28. 11 states sit farther south than the northernmost point of Mexico. Mexico is not entirely south of the United States. The United States border with Mexico angles in a way that puts large parts of Texas and the southern reaches of many states at latitudes well south of northern Mexico. The border is more east to west than the mental map suggests. Fact 29. Atlanta, Georgia is one of the most landlocked major cities in the country, yet it became a transportation capital with no natural reason to exist where it does. Atlanta was founded purely as a railroad terminus. It was literally named Terminus before it was Atlanta. Most great American cities grew up on rivers, harbors, or lakes. Atlanta grew up on the end of a train line, in the middle of nowhere, because the railroad decided to stop there. Fact 30. And we end back where we started, in the middle. The single most central point of the population of the United States has been in Missouri for 50 years, and it keeps moving southwest year after year, decade after decade, as Americans migrate toward the south and the west. Every 10 years, the Census Bureau recalculates it, and every 10 years, it inches further toward the Ozarks. The mathematical heart of America is not in Washington, not in New York, not in any city you would name. It is in a small Missouri town most Americans have never heard of, in the hills, where the truth usually is. 30 facts. If you got more than 10 of them right before a watching, your geography is genuinely excellent. If you got most of them wrong, you are in the overwhelming majority, because the map most Americans carry in their heads is a rough sketch. And the real shape of this country is stranger, older, and more surprising than the sketch allows. Subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell, drop a comment. Which one of these did you absolutely refuse to believe until you looked it up? Because there are more than 30, and there will be a part 2.